Evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Charlotte City Council business meeting on January 23rd, 2012. My name is Anthony Fox, Mayor of Charlotte. I want to welcome all of you who've come tonight to be part of our meeting tonight, as well as those who are watching at home. We really appreciate your engagement on issues of importance to the community. In the spirit of previous councils, we will open this meeting by announcing the members of the dais, followed by an invocation and a pledge of allegiance. Ms. Clerk.
Ashley Price, Deputy City Clerk.
Kurt Walton, City Manager.
Warren Cooksey, District 7.
Good evening. Michael Barnes, representing District 4.
Patsy Kinsey, District 1.
Beth Pickering, Council Member at Large.
David Howard, Council Member at Large.
Claire Green Fallon, Councilwoman at Large.
James Mitchell, District 2.
Andy Doolin, representing District 6.
Luana Mayfield, District 3.
John Autry, District 5.
Bob Hageman, City Attorney.
We now do the invocation. Dear God, we thank you for this day. We thank you for the people who live in our city, for the many people who work for its betterment, for the families, and for the children. We ask for your wisdom as we make decisions tonight that impact our community, as we do just about every week. We ask for you to look over those who are fighting for the freedoms that we enjoy. We ask for your support as we continue to try to strive to make this city as good as it possibly can be. In your name I pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Tonight is our Citizens Forum, and it is an opportunity for citizens to raise issues and questions and so forth to the City Council. We have a number of speakers signed up tonight, and I'm going to start with Rayfield Taylor. Rayfield Taylor, you will come on up. Each speaker has 3 minutes, and I want to apologize in advance to all the speakers that when the bell rings, I will be insisting that the speech discontinue at that time, just to be respectful of other folks' time. Right up this to this podium, sir. Thank you and welcome.
Thank you. I want to use this opportunity to bring attention to a social epidemic that I think is, being seen a lot here in Charlotte and nationally as well. And it's causing a lot of people, such as myself, to be disenfranchised when it comes down to trying to obtain employment. And that is conducting criminal background checks on potential applicants. And what happens is that a lot of times when you have people that have, broken the laws and collected misdemeanors or felonies along the way and have did their time in jail or prison, and they seek re-entry back into society, they're usually met, with, they're usually shut out at the door because people will choose not to hire people who have a criminal background. And, this creates almost no alternatives at all, except for, more crime or, seeking public assistance in the form of welfare, food stamps, or some type of aid. The reason that I know this so well is because within the last several months, I have applied for various companies in the manufacturing sector and have completed aptitude tests, met with the managers, and went through several phases of questions and passed, only to be denied because of my criminal background, even though I have over 20 years, just about 20 years of experience in the manufacturing industry with companies such as Philip Morris and Freightliner, and I'm healthy. I'm willing to work, and if you can look at me, you can see I'm not missing too many meals. But for some reason, I'm not employable. And see, and it's affecting more than just me, and it's thousands of people. And I guess a lot of people would say the same thing, but unfortunately, most of the ones that it affects, they're not able to communicate, their issues, and they can address them, So, when we try to figure out what are some of the factors that create more crime here in Charlotte, or create some of the dangerous neighborhoods, or whatever the cases may be. Not being able to obtain a job, it's got to be number one on the list. I don't know if there's anything that you guys can do, because I guess it's up to each individual employer's right to hire who they want to. But also remember that, if it's done unchecked, if nobody regulates that, then it can easily turn into a form of discrimination. And what better way to do it than to do it in a way that's backed up legally? I just don't, like I say, I've written several letters.
Thank you, sir. And one thing I would like for you to do, and get someone from staff to do, is to put you in touch with the Center for Community Transitions, which has had a very good success rate at getting people who do have criminal backgrounds into employment. And I'd like to maybe see if someone can help you get connected to them.
Okay.
Thank you very much. And I appreciate you coming and sharing your story. Thank you. Brenda Stevenson, Pastor Brenda Stevenson. Is she here tonight? Okay, I don't see Pastor Brenda Stevenson. Rena Blake. Miss Blake, or Mr. Blake. Fred Money. Fred Money. Malgarzada Zitkow. Welcome, ma'am.
Thank you. My name is Małgorzata Żydkow. I am here to speak on behalf of my son, Michael Żydkow. He was arrested at the City Council meeting on DNC ordinances for going over 3 minutes limit. As a mother, I was shocked that my son was treated this way. But as a citizen of United States, I am amazed that something like this could happen in this country. When my husband and I moved here from communist Poland 30 years ago, we were grateful to live in a country with all the rights guaranteed by the First Amendment. When we left Poland, people were scared to speak against the government for the fear of arrest. I never expected that we would see the same situation here. We are proud to have a son that is deeply concerned about this country and active in the political life. We raised Michael to speak his mind and question authority. He has always done so peacefully but passionately, and his speech in front of you last week was no exception. Michael has never been arrested before. In fact, he has been an exceptional citizen. He graduated from Wake Forest University. He served with Interfaith Alliance in Washington, D.C. He built houses during the Hurricane Katrina disaster relief. He worked with Mother Teresa's charities in Calcutta. He spent time in Nicaragua researching sweatshop conditions in the clothing industry. And he taught high school history through Teach for America. Most recently, we are proud of his involvement with Occupy Charlotte. I cannot imagine that his arrest truly had to do with 18 seconds his speech that went over. More likely, it had to do with the content of his speech and the fact that you wanted to make an example out of him. The mayor likes to remind us about his polite use of the word sir or ma'am to address the public, while calling for their arrest behind closed doors. I see this as an abuse of power and the oppression of free speech. I just wonder how many people are now afraid of speak freely before the council. Because personally, I'm scared right now that I exceed 3 minutes and will be arrested for the first time in my life. I expect an apology for arresting my son, an apology to the citizens of Charlotte for your behavior and abuse of power. Thank you.
Deborah Shackleton. Deborah Shackleton. Deborah Shackelford.
Hello. My name is Deborah Shackelford. I'm here before you speaking out against the arrest of my son-in-law, Michael Zitkow. On Monday, January 9th, 2012, he was arrested at the City Council meeting. His crime was apparently speaking 18 seconds over the 3-minute limit. It seems more likely that he was actually arrested for what he said. It is also ironic that he was arrested while expressing his views against laws that would limit our freedom of expression. After Mike spoke for 3 minutes, the mayor signaled the police to apprehend him. He never once resisted and left peacefully. He was also never given the opportunity to simply leave the building. Instead, he was taken out of the chambers, pressed against the wall, and arrested. The arresting officer told him twice that he should have kept quiet. He was also told he was being charged with disrupting a public meeting. Mr. Barnes, who happens to represent Mike's district, witnessed the arrest and did nothing. Mike was taken to jail, treated like a criminal, and told he was actually being charged with disorderly conduct. After an hour after Mike had spoken, and as he sat in jail, an elderly gentleman was addressing the council. The man spoke over the 3-minute limit without realizing it. Instead of being arrested, the man was given an extra 2 minutes. This was, of course, long after almost everyone in the audience had left. The rule seems to apply only to those criticizing their local officials. There were several individuals that night who spoke a number of seconds beyond the 3-minute limit in order to finish their point. Mike was not even the most disruptive individual in attendance, which leads me to question again, why was he treated so severely? Mike spoke with an assistant district attorney who explained that it was up to the individual police officer to interpret whether his behavior was disorderly and worthy of arrest. Allowing the police to interpret the law and selectively enforce it are the very things that Mike was speaking against when he was arrested. I also expect an apology for arresting Mike and an apology for the citizens of Charlotte for your behavior and abuse of power. Thank you.
Desiree Shackelfield. Desiree Shackelfield.
Hi, my name is Desiree Shackelford. I am Michael Jitkoff's fiance. We have been together for 9 years since our days at Independence High School. We have a 3-year-old son. The night of Michael's arrest was an incredibly stressful time. I was at work. I spent hours trying to get a hold of him on the phone. I had no idea what was happening to him. I had to scramble to make arrangements for someone to watch our son, go down to the jailhouse, and turn around and get up at 5 in the morning for work. I would just ask how any of you would feel if one of your spouses was arrested, jailed, and treated like a criminal. I feel that those responsible need to be held accountable. The arresting officer, the mayor, the city council owe Michael an apology. They need to apologize for arresting someone without cause, to apologize for giving someone a criminal record, for the time spent in jail, for the time and energy spent on legally fighting this charge, and for the effect it has had on our entire family. In the big picture, you need to apologize to those who are now scared to approach the council because of instances like this, and for embarrassing and tarnishing our local democracy. The City Council had an opportunity to stand up for their constituents in their time of need and chose not to. In my view, silence is complicity. You all seem to have forgotten that if it wasn't for brave individuals standing up and challenging authority, as in the civil rights movement, many of you would not have the opportunity to be elected. We have entrusted you to govern our city. That is a great responsibility. Government cannot work properly without a true dialogue.
replied after you the B word. Unknowingly to Mr. Coyote, the female officer was part of a prostitution sting operation in the area. Subsequently, he was arrested at a nearby gas station for soliciting prostitution by 2 uniformed Charlotte police officers. He was released and scheduled to stand trial for soliciting prostitution on September 7th. He appeared before the PVH board for appeal of his permitted revocation, but he was told to wait for the court date. So, Mr. Coyote, in actuality, he did not commit a crime, nor did he ever plead guilty to soliciting prostitution. And on his September 7th court date, Mr. Coyote's case was withdrawn by the court system. It was evident that the charges were trumped up. For the PVH manager to revoke Mr. Coyote's permit by making a finding of criminal conduct independent of the justice system, that's problematic. Mr. Coyote this man has been unemployed for over 7 months. And his loss of employment was unjustly based on false criminal charges and was dismissed by the Mecklenburg County court system. He is the sole provider for his family, and he has, this has caused extreme financial hardship on his family. This is a most serious predicament. Inasmuch as the taxi business provides this man's only income, I urge you, in light of the circumstances, to do right, to right this injustice, and direct the PVH department to reissue Mr. Coyote's taxi permit immediately. Mr. Coyote, he's a hardworking man. He's an honest man. He's a family man. And we're destroying his livelihood unjustly. Helping him in this situation, that's the right thing to do. Mr. Mayor, I'm counting on you. Council, I'm counting on you. I know if somebody said that to me, I might not be as nice as Mr. Coyote. But I want you to do right and give this man some justice. He's been out of work. He has no means of employment, working for his family. And like I said, his livelihood, this tax cab business is his livelihood. So put yourself in that situation. Give this man some justice. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Manager, can we have a report on this situation? I think it does merit getting some feedback from the staff.
We'll be glad to do that, Mayor.
Thank you very much.
No, sir. That's fine. Same request.
That concludes our speakers for the evening. And I want to thank all of you who've come. We now move to the awards and recognitions portion of the meeting. And we start with National Mentoring Month recognition. Month of January is National Mentoring Month, and tonight we have with us Letitia Mack, the Senior Program Director for High School Initiatives at the YMCA of Greater Charlotte, who will receive a proclamation recognizing this month as National Mentoring Month, an opportunity to raise public awareness of the importance of mentoring, to recognize the dedicated individuals who serve as mentors, and to encourage more citizens to build a brighter future for Charlotte's youth through mentoring. And so as she comes forward, I'm going to ask maybe Councilmember Mayfield to read this proclamation. We also, by the way, have members of the Mayor's Mentoring Alliance in the audience, including Youth Development Initiative and Dee Rankin. So we want to acknowledge you as well. If you just stick your hand up in the air, we'll give you an acknowledgement. Thank you for being here tonight.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
And the proclamation reads, City of Charlotte, North Carolina's proclamation, whereas the citizens of Charlotte recognize that our success depends on helping every child succeed in school and reach their full potential in life, and realize that young people need a solid foundation of support that will help them become well-educated, confident, and productive citizens. And whereas mentors build character, encourage success, boost confidence, lift expectations, and expand the universe of a child, serving as friends, role models, teachers, and sources of stability and support during a critical time in a child's life. And whereas the National Mentoring Month is an opportunity to raise public awareness of the importance of mentoring, recognize the dedicated individuals who serve mentors, and encourage more citizens to help build a brighter future for Charlotte's youth through mentoring. Now, therefore, I, Anthony R. Fox, Mayor of Charlotte, do hereby proclaim January 2012 as National Mentoring Month in Charlotte and commend its observance to all citizens. Witness my hand and the official seal of the City of Charlotte.
Thank you.
Thank you. You want to say something? We're waiting to hear from you.
Shake hands.
Speech.
Well, on behalf of the YMCA of Greater Charlotte and the Y Achievers Program, I would like to thank you for the proclamation. And like you said, January is National Mentoring Month, and we're looking forward to having people within Charlotte to take on the role of being mentors and mentor our youth, because they definitely need all of you. So thank you.
Thank you. Come on and receive the proclamation.
Thank you for presenting the Y so well. Thank you. Good job. I was on the committee too. Congratulations.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Very important. For those of you who are watching, we have a need of 6,000 mentors in Charlotte for kids across our community. And if you want to know more, go to the city website, www.charmec.org, and look up the Mayor's Mentoring Alliance. So thank you very much for that. On consent, looks like we have a few items pulled. 18 by council member, 37K, we have a speaker, which we'll hear from in a second, and 37JNOP have all been pulled by staff and settled. So is there a motion on the balance of the items?
Move to approve.
I'm sorry, Mr. Doolin.
Yes, sir. I have two additional items I'd like to pull, please. Number 21 and 22. Both would be easy.
Second. Okay, there's a second with Mr. Doolin's modifications.
Yes, sir.
Okay. All in favor on the balance of the items, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That carries. And so let's go to 37K, where our speaker is Boyd Falls.
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Falls.
Mr. Falls has left the building.
Okay.
But we had a nice conversation, and Patsy and I just discussed a little bit, and he's going to move on with the process as we've laid it out for him.
So we can approve this item.
We can approve 30. I thought it was 37M, so I didn't say anything. I apologize.
37K, is there a motion?
So moved.
So moved.
Moved and seconded, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, very well. And we'll take up the balance of those items later on in our agenda. And now that takes us to the city manager's report. Mr. City Manager.
No, sir, don't have a report.
Great report, thank you. And now to item 7, city code amendments. This is what I assume many people in the audience are here to hear our debate about tonight. These are the ordinances that have been discussed in various forms over the last several weeks. A couple of observations that I'd like to make at the outset. Number one, I've watched as this the issue around the Occupy movement across the country has occurred, and I think the city has done an incredible job of working with those who are demonstrating and respecting the lines there. And I think to this point, as some of the speakers said during the hearing, that is to be commended. This demonstration coincides with a set of procedures and policies that have been under review as a result of our getting the Democratic National Convention here, and that is what precipitated the review that has led to these amendments. As we've gone through that, the public hearing process has yielded some changes from the voices of the people who came to spoke, and I thought perhaps tonight we would start out with hearing from Bob Hageman about specifically what those changes have been, and maybe start our conversation there and then get into some debate on the policy. Mr. Hageman.
Thank you, Mayor. Let me begin by pointing out what the goal of this effort was. It was twofold.
Number one, to provide law enforcement the tools that it needs to protect the public safety. And number two, to respect and protect the First Amendment rights of our citizens and visitors. There's a balance to be struck. Our goal is to achieve both of those objectives. We don't find them to be mutually exclusive. Let me begin by describing what these proposals don't do. And I mentioned this at the end of the public hearing back on January the 9th. Under Charlotte's ordinances today, any citizen has a right to exercise their First Amendment rights on city-controlled traditional public forum. Those are the public sidewalks and the limited number of park-like properties that are under the city's control. Those rights may be exercised any day of the day or night, any day of the week, any day of the year, without the need to get permission from the government. There is nothing about this proposal that changes that. There is nothing about the proposal that will change that during the Democratic National Convention. Mayor, as you indicated, we came forward with Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police Department on January 3rd with proposed ordinances. A public hearing was held on the 9th of January. Staff has reviewed the comments and input made not only at the public hearing, but from offline conversations we've had with the North Carolina chapter of the American Civil Liberties Union, a variety of local attorneys, civil rights attorneys, representatives from Occupy Charlotte, and others. As a result of that consideration, on Wednesday with your agenda packet, we proposed revisions to the ordinance. As a reminder, the original proposal consisted of 3 ordinances, amendments to Chapter 2, Chapter 15, and Chapter 19 of the City Code. The Chapter 2 proposal would have created a mechanism whereby the city manager could declare an extraordinary event. The only impact of such a declaration under the original proposal was to give the manager the ability to set different application deadlines for certain permits and to establish a process for issuing permits when there were multiple requests for the same location in the same time. In the context of the DNC, we anticipated that that would apply to parades in what we expect will be a designated parade route, and also for speakers' rights at what we are calling a speakers' platform. The Chapter 15 proposal would prohibit 6 areas of conduct that are currently not regulated or prohibited. First is camping on city-owned property. There's a provision dealing with obstruction devices, one that would prohibit bonfires on city property, another that would prohibit noxious substances and the use thereof, an additional provision that would authorize the establishment of police lines and make it unlawful to cross those lines, and finally prohibitions on unauthorized attachments to public and private buildings. The final ordinance were proposed amendments to Chapter 19, which contains the city's picketing and public assembly ordinances. A number of those were technical in nature. The ones that were more substantive would prohibit certain identified and defined conduct and the possession of certain material that at the end of my comments I'll ask Deputy Police Chief Harold Medlin to speak to. Again, as a result of the comments, we've come forward with 3 revised ordinances. We've done away with any changes to Chapter 2. The Chapter 19 picketing and public assembly ordinance right now is left with nothing but what I would describe as technical amendments. The list of prohibited conduct and prohibited items has been moved out of Chapter 19. That leaves 2 ordinances directed at Chapter 15. The first one is identical with one exception to what was proposed initially. That's the one dealing with camping and the other activities. The proposed change is in reaction to a comment made at the public hearing, and it is a clarification that the prohibition does not extend to temporary shelters such as canopies that are used in the context of a First Amendment activity, for example, to provide shelter from the sun. The most significant changes are the combining of the extraordinary event provision dealing with permitting and the list of prohibited items and conduct. In the original draft, those items would have been invoked at any public assembly, festival, or demonstration or picket anywhere in the city. A number of comments raised the point or made the point that that was too expansive, that those restrictions were not needed for the vast majority of public assemblies and demonstrations where there was no history of any kind of danger or threat of harm in the future. And in consultation with the police department and the police chief, we agreed. What this proposal does is limit the triggering of those regulations only to extraordinary events. And in declaring an extraordinary event under the current proposal, the manager would have to identify or determine the time period and the geographical location, the boundaries of the extraordinary event, and only upon doing so would those regulations kick in. It is our intent, and we fully expect that those declarations would be made in sufficient time ahead of the event such that we can widely publicize the fact that an extraordinary event has been declared and that the regulations would be in play. In speaking with the chief and the city manager, it's anticipated, based on what our past experience is, that that declaration is likely to occur over the next 12 months for Speed Street, the 4th of July celebration, the Democratic National Convention, and the New Year's Eve celebration. The final change was an attempt to respond to concerns, legitimate concerns, that the regulations as drafted might affect wholly innocent conduct. What we have built into the ordinance is an affirmative defense. There are provisions that essentially say it is an affirmative defense to prosecution if one can demonstrate that they possessed the prohibited item for a legitimate reason and they were going to or coming from the place where they legitimately used the item, and the item was not used illegally or to harm another person. Mayor, that is my description of the changes in a process that got us here. Again, as indicated, I think the council and the audience would benefit from some comments from Deputy Chief Harold Medlock.
Great. Deputy Chief.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I want to share with you some information, detailed information about some of the prohibited items that are on the extraordinary event ordinance to further explain why we felt it was important to include these as we move forward into the coming events this year. In and of themselves, and by themselves, and by an individual carrying any one of these things in any one day of the year does not cause concern. When you bring hundreds and perhaps thousands of demonstrators that may be caught up with folks who want to conduct criminal activity, these items begin to cause us great concern for the safety of those folks who are peacefully demonstrating, the folks who are observing the demonstrations or the event, and the police officers that would be protecting those that are involved in the activity. So I want to run through a few of these, if you don't mind, and share with you some experiences that we've learned and why we recommended these items. In C1, in extraordinary event, you'll see that we recommend a bar, chain, shaft, staff, cable, wire, lumber, or plastic pipe be included in the items that would be prohibited. If you can imagine a 4-foot length of steel cable being used as a weapon or a striking instrument, could cause some serious damage to folks that would be involved in an event. A bar, of course, any kind of a metal rod or a bar, rebar, that kind of thing would be considered a problem. A staff, which is not considered a walking cane, but a staff that someone would use perhaps for hiking that might be 6 or 7 feet long, would not necessarily be appropriate in a large crowd situation. Plastic pipe, believe it or not, can be used to secrete rebar and other objects inside. Again, plastic pipe doesn't seem like it would be that dangerous to an individual, but when you reinforce it with either wood, concrete, or metal pipe, it becomes quite dangerous to folks in a crowd. Containers or objects that might be of a sufficient weight to cause serious damage, such as a projectile, could be anything from a bottle filled with rocks to a can of soda that has been shaken to an extent that if it's thrown, it strikes someone, the can would then explode. Aerosol containers, spray guns, and soaker devices are used to house urine and other noxious substances to spray folks that are in the crowd or spray police officers. Paint guns, etching material, spray paint containers, liquid paint or markers, anything that would be anything that's not water soluble could be used with a match to create some type of a flammable discharge device, basically a flamethrower. Backpacks, duffel bags, satchels, coolers, and other items such as this are frequently used to carry bricks and rocks. They're used to, for lack of a better description, we have in the 2008 Democratic National Convention, folks walked into porta-johns that were supplied by the city of Denver, filled up plastic bags with feces, and then filled up their backpacks and satchels with those bags to be used to throw at attendees and police officers who were trying to protect those folks. Sharp or bladed objects. Just recently in a protest out west, one of the large cities there, we had several officers, the city had several officers who were holding a police line while folks were demonstrating, peacefully demonstrating. But the one thing that did occur there is a female's arm came through the crowd, came through the first line of demonstrators who were facing off with the police officers, used a box cutter to cut the backs of 3 or 4 officers' hands and inflicting some pretty serious damage to tendons and the nerves there on the backs of hands. Of course, ice picks and axes kind of stand for themselves. We don't think those are a good idea to have in a large crowd situation. Hammers used to break car windows and plate glass windows. Crowbars are used to, of course, break windows, but also to pry doors that are locked open so that businesses can be, or properties can be entered and damage inflicted. Also used as striking objects against individuals. Pepper spray and mace and other types of those items, again, recently in major protests in major cities, similar to Charlotte, there were officers that were, again, holding a line. An individual came up, sprayed those officers with pepper spray, and those officers were taken out of commission, had to be decontaminated, as well as some folks that were in the front lines of the protest. We don't discourage anyone from carrying pepper spray or mace to protect themselves. We don't think it's a very good idea. We don't encourage, we don't support the idea that someone would be carrying those kinds of items during a demonstration or a large crowd situation. Body armor such as shields and helmets, protective pads and gas masks. While some would argue that they carry those to protect themselves against the police, the simple fact is those masks are used as a offensive weapon. That equipment is used as an offensive weapon against police officers. We have in Vancouver during the hockey riots late in the summer, we had individuals who showed up with helmets, riot helmets, their own helmets, motorcycle helmets, and homemade wooden shields that they prepared to use against police officers later in the night as the event unfolded in Vancouver. Masks or scarves are currently prohibited in the city of Charlotte. We included this, as we have with everything else, to ensure that folks understand what it is that is allowed and not allowed in these types of events. We wanted to be very clear for folks who attend these events what is allowed and is not allowed. Of course, police scanners allow folks to understand and know police transmissions or police traffic, and then folks use those to counter our movements as we go about trying to keep peace in the city. Rocks, bottles, bricks. Again, we have several instances going back to both conventions in 2008 where stashes of these items were found by police officers before they were used, but they were strategically located. And then there were folks who also had those items with them that used them against peaceful demonstrators as well as the police officers in those conventions. Any kind of a slingshot or a device that would be able to hurl objects at a long distance would be prohibited. And of course, fireworks. In 2007, we experienced at the 4th of July celebration what I witnessed that night on Tryon Street was sure to cause some serious damage to a lot of kids that were on the sidewalk at the square when some very, very large fireworks were thrown at their feet. And I was sure that we were going to have some damage or injuries to folks that night. It's a pretty terrifying situation to see those kinds of explosions occur right in the middle of large crowds of young people. Animals, folks think that dogs are your typical kind of animal, but some of the conventions and some of the protests have dealt with very, very large snakes, very exotic animals, and some dangerous dogs that have been brought to the events. These are a few of the items and a few of the explanations that I wanted to share with you. I do want to share one instance from the Republican National Convention in 2008 where a group of protesters fully armored themselves with helmets, gas masks. They dismantled a road sign, a very large aluminum road sign, shut down a 4-lane road, and attacked a group of police officers. Used the road sign as a shield, and the officers were finally able to repel that attack, which is on video, by using their pepper ball, less lethal device at their feet, and the folks finally backed off. But it was a very tense, very dangerous situation for those few officers that were backed against a wall. During that particular attack, there were cars that were damaged, there were people that were stopped and terrified. We're trying to prevent that kind of activity here in Charlotte in September. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Deputy Chief. I think your presentation comes from a question Mr. Howard asked at the dinner meeting. Mr. Howard, do you want to follow up?
Just a little bit, Mayor. When we first heard all of the things you shared, and you shared even more. You didn't talk about people putting their hands with cement into the pipes. You didn't talk about the fact that people were willing to put themselves on what you call a tripod to hurt themselves in order to be disruptive. We heard a lot of disturbing things a couple of weeks ago when we first started going down this path. And I thought it was important for the public to know that this is not playful. It's actually very disturbing to me. And most of my colleagues will tell you, I don't normally even talk like this, but it was very disturbing that you guys laughed when we talked about, when you heard what he said. Because people got hurt in other places. And I've actually sat here and I've actually tried to figure out, which one is more important to me. Free speech, which I believe in wholeheartedly as an American, and safety. And in this situation, I'll be honest with you, I'm concerned about the safety of not the police officers, but it would seem like a number of you that I've talked to are actually in this for the right reason, but then there are a lot of people that are not. So these rules would protect you just as much as they would protect anybody else. Okay, off my soapbox. What do you do when people are willing to hurt themselves in order to be disruptive? There are not a lot of options that you have. You do your best to change the rules to address those. And what you heard from the police tonight, and I'm talking to the public and TV world as much as anybody, you heard why this is a problem. When people come in for no other reason other than to be disruptive, when they chain themselves together just to, stop traffic. I mean, what else do you do as leaders? You have to take those types of threats seriously. And for that reason, I do plan to support this because this is not, safety has to come first as far as I'm concerned. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. We've got a couple of speakers that are, I'm sorry, folks, but we're going to have to insist on folks being quiet. At this point in time, we had a public hearing a week ago or 2 weeks ago. I came tonight wanting to talk about a few issues, and I've got a couple of folks that want to speak, and I'm just going to sort of lay out the issues that I want to hear more response from on the staff end. There's been some conversation about if this is a pass tonight, having a delayed or sort of a grace period, and the practical impact of a grace period. There's been discussion of a sunset and discussion of the impact of that. I did hear some concerns, some very pointed concerns about the impact on our homeless population. And I'd like to know the staff thinking on that subject. And also, I've also read a few comments about the process by which we would declare an extraordinary event, and whether the trigger for that, city manager currently would have that ability, whether the council, this is council discussion, whether that has as much of a direct accountability to the public as we might want. I think it's a question, not an answer, but I think it's something we ought to be talking about tonight. So I'm sure that'll come up. I'm going to give it to Ms. Fallon, and then Mr. Barnes, and then maybe at some point, maybe Bob or Kurt, maybe y'all could weigh in. Claire.
Deputy Chief, I have a question, and that is, the ordinances you have now and the rules and the laws on the books, you don't feel adequate to be able to handle what's to come?
No, ma'am. No, ma'am. Excuse me. When we received the bid for the convention, one of the very first things that we did was begin our research of local ordinances and laws, state laws as well. Based on what we do have, we've never had any kind of course, any kind of event like this. And we reached out to cities that are similar in size and also cities who have hosted large events such as the conventions. And we got their input, we got their ordinances, and we realized pretty quickly that we were inadequate in our local ordinances to work with an event such as this.
So this is strengthening what you have and adding that you feel you need to be able to make safety for the public and the police.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Mr. Barnes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I wanted to make a motion to approve A, B, and C, and also make the changes effective January 30th, 2012, and also make a couple of points.
I'll second this motion.
The first one of which is that for the folks who have been a little frustrated with us in this process, we've been trying to be as responsive as possible to your concerns, and you've seen that in some of the adjustments that have been made since you all were first here. There are people who would, of course, like to see an environment where there are no rules, where there's no law, and people can do whatever they want to do. But we have all taken an oath to protect this city, the people of this city, and obviously we have an interest in protecting the property of this city and private owners in the city. So as I have reviewed the ordinance changes, I've talked to our city attorney, I feel comfortable that we are not violating people's constitutional rights. I think we have made a very firm and fair effort to actually avoid violating constitutional rights. And I think that, I said this to someone earlier today, but a lot of the people to whom these changes will apply aren't in the room tonight. There are people who mean you no good, they mean us no good, they mean the city no good. They want to disrupt and destroy. And I hope you can understand. I know there are folks who won't, but the fact of the matter is it's our job to do what we can to protect Charlotte and to protect the people of the city. So, Mr. Mayor, I'd make that motion, and I appreciate the second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Yes. Mr. Archer, yes, sir.
I had a question about the officers being given the ability to determine intent. What are we going to be doing to provide training for officers on how to conduct themselves with these new ordinances?
Mr. Autry, we will do, particularly for this event, for the new ordinances, a substantial amount of training, not just for our police officers, but for our police commanders, our supervisors, and then specifically for those officers who come from outside agencies to assist us. Those officers will go through every bit of training on the new ordinances, our policies. I'm talking about CMPD's policies and procedures, and will fall within our chain of command. And unless they pass through those courses, they won't serve here during the Democratic National Convention.
All right, Ms. Mayfield.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. For me, this was a difficult decision mainly because of the work that I have previously done in the community as a community advocate and upholding and believing in our rights to free speech. But I also recognize that there are rules and regulations and guidelines, and that as an elected official, we are entrusted to think of and to realize the big picture. So that is how to keep our officers protected, how to keep our citizens protected. Because too often we have seen where people who do not have good intentions coming into a space as a pass-through, and then the local community is left with the impact of destruction. We have an opportunity to do something amazing in Charlotte and to show something a little different. I believe that with our discussions and listening to the community, we've been able to create a compromise that still creates that safety we need, as well as protect our people and let people know that their voices are not being shunted. They are going to be heard. But I would like to ask if we have an opportunity to look at possibly, instead of just the city attorney being able to declare the event an extraordinary, the city manager, I apologize, the extraordinary event, to also possibly include either the mayor, or so that we have two voices coming to that table to determine what can be looking forward as far as what can be considered an extraordinary event. So I would like to make that as a substitute or an amendment to the motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
And that would be? Well, a substitute can be.
But she's asking the maker now.
Are you asking for a substitute?
No, she's
At
asking
first
for
she
an
did,
addendum.
then she asked the amendment. Okay. For an amendment.
A friendly amendment. Excuse me.
May I speak to that? The concern I have is that under our form of government, it is the city manager's job to provide direct instruction to our staff. And I trust that this particular mayor is smart enough and insightful enough to know how to use certain powers that we may grant to him. My concern is that in the future that may not be the case. I have had a number of years of conversations with Manager Walton, and I trust his judgment, and I feel comfortable that he will be as on top of the DNC as he has been in the prep process for the DNC. So I'm reluctant to actually accept the amendment, Councilmember Mayfield, because I think it makes the extraordinary event piece more political than it should be. Right now, it is at least as proposed, up to an official who we hire to make that decision. If we're going to make it political, I would think we'd make it a council decision, not just in the mayor's office. But for those reasons, I'm reluctant to accept it as a friendly amendment. If it's forced upon me, then I'll have to vote accordingly. But
I think that's a no. Ms. Kinsey and then
Thank you.
Mr. Archer.
Well, I would agree with you, Councilmember Barnes. Actually, I think if we're talking about an extraordinary event, we're going to know ahead of time. And the manager's going to come to this body and at least let us know what he's thinking or what he's going to do. So I think we will know, and at that point can have a conversation with him if we need to. So I would suggest that maybe we go ahead with the motion that's on the floor, and that's what I would support.
Mr. Kinsey?
I can't put it better than that, so I don't have anything to say about that.
Mr. Archer?
Well, I was just going to add that I also trust Mr. Walton's decision-making process in such an event. But just as we don't know who might follow the current mayor, we also don't know who will follow Mr. Walton. So it does seem like that there should be some sort of balance between the public input from the council and the city manager together to come together and declare such as an extraordinary event.
Well, I was going to respond.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll respond to that. The manager's authority is basically delegated to him from the council in the first place. I'm comfortable leaving the ordinance as written, knowing that if a future manager oversteps his bounds, a responsive council will say, wait a minute, how do we do that, and yank that authority. But to bake it in from the beginning, I think whether it's the mayor or the council, creates that potential tension in the future that Council Members Barnes and Kinsey spoke of, where each application of the extraordinary event becomes a concern of, well, what political implication might this have this time around? I think if we look at some of the things that we delegate to the manager, we ultimately, or future councils, the council in general, ultimately has the control over it. And the fact that it's not a trigger each time means that it would be exercised very judiciously. And a future council that has a problem with a future manager's call would treat it as the extra special consideration that it should be, rather than the routine part that could get derailed. So I like it the way it is, too.
Let me ask this question of the staff. Do we anticipate there being, using the word spontaneous events that become extraordinary events? I mean, will we always know that it's a 4th of July or a convention or something else, or do we anticipate there being situations where something happens and there's an extraordinary event?
I think it's certainly possible that there could be unforeseen events. Hopefully the four that you outlined, or someone outlined earlier, would be the four that we would foresee for the next 12 months. But I don't know where the line between this and emergency declaration of powers that you already have come together. And so I guess it's possible. I can't foresee what that would be, or I can't define what that might be, but it's possible.
Mr. Howard and then Mr. Cookson.
I actually asked that question of the city attorney upstairs. The way he explained it to me, Mayor, was that what we're talking about is getting in front of problems. What you have is the state of emergency or the state of emergency declaration, which you can do, which is normally in response to something. So I think in your situation, you'd have the right to do that.
Okay. Mr. Doolin? I'm sorry, Mr. Cookson and Mr. Doolin.
I've spoken already if you want to go with him. I was just going to read the definition.
That's okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I prefer to hear something off the cuff.
I understand.
Which we will.
Well, here we go.
Fasteners.
Thank you, Mayor. Actually, I'd like to have some conversation amongst us with the January 30th date. I'd like to work it out here in public rather than somewhere else, and we need to talk about time. We need to talk about et cetera. I mean, I don't really know what we need to talk about. I'm in favor of a date, and you picked the 30th, Mr. Barnes, and that's okay with me. I don't even know what day of the week that is.
Next Monday.
Monday.
It's a Monday.
Next Monday.
Okay. Yeah, it makes sense. So let's talk about next Monday a little bit, and what we would anticipate happening. For instance, I would anticipate the Occupy Charlotte folks, although they have, in my opinion, worn out the yard at Old City Hall, they have done so peaceably. And I credit them for that. And that doesn't come easily. That comes with them getting together and say, hey, guys, we're going to do this peaceably. I would hope that they will see that this council, actually the council has listened, because the ordinance changed substantially in numbers of ways since the 9th of January, and we heard about that tonight. But I would hope that they would know that, or see and respond to the motion and the second and the vote that's going to happen here tonight, that the 30th, where I would hope things stay peaceable also. And and maybe we can talk about a withdrawal of camp in a peaceable manner. And so that I'd like to talk about that a little bit, Mayor.
Okay. Mr. Howard?
I asked that same question of the chief upstairs, and maybe it'd be worth having either Curtis or Chief Monroe actually respond. If that's okay, Mr. Dillon.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Good evening. What we possibly would foresee, depending upon your vote tonight, is the establishment of a particular date. And along with that would come the expectation that we believe that additional conversations need to be had to ensure that everyone fully understands what the law actually means and what the requirements of individuals that would be deemed now to be in violation of that law. We then expect to, again, make sure that no one will be unduly inconvenienced because of the fact that this new law was established, and that there is some additional assistance that may be needed with individuals that we will look to support them in that particular area. And then we'll look to set a date beyond that January 30th date where we would look to assist anyone that may need our assistance. And our hope would be that we would be met with a voluntary compliance with that new ordinance. However, should the need be, or should someone continue to be in violation, then quite naturally they would be arrested for that violation.
Okay, Ms. Pickering.
I'm not sure exactly where we are, but I'm going to go ahead and speak. I appreciate everything that's been said here tonight. I appreciate what Councilwoman Mayfield said. This is a very difficult vote for me, personally, because we are weighing the balance between freedom of speech and public safety. If I had my druthers, I would allow the folks to stay until DNC and then be moved to wherever Secret Service determined that the protest area would be. And then beyond that, I would like to see a permanent free speech protest area designated for the city of Charlotte. We just celebrated Dr. King's birthday. This is what Dr. King was all about. Nonviolent, peaceful, political protest. However, having said all that, and that comes from the heart, I think you can tell, our job here is to keep this city safe. I have the utmost respect for the chief of police who spoke to us a little bit earlier. Appreciate the time he took with us, hearing our concerns. So I'm struggling. But I wanted to get that idea out there of even being a leader in embracing political protest as an identity for Charlotte. That may not happen tonight, but I thought that was an interesting idea that's worth putting out there, maybe having future discussions about. So at any rate, I think I'll end it there, struggling.
Mayor Pro Tem Cannon.
Mr. Mayor, thank you very much. I'll try to be very brief. Bob, I just want to make sure I'm clear. Even after the 30th, should this pass, people can still show up anytime during the day, anytime during the night. At the current location where we've seen folks occupying, well, where we've seen camping per se. Am I correct in assuming that?
That's correct, Mayor Pro Tem. I think it's a very important point to make tonight. That's consistent with part of what I said earlier, which is that the current ordinances allow First Amendment activity, demonstrating and protesting on city-controlled traditional public forum property, which are the sidewalks and a limited number of city-controlled properties, one of which is the old City Hall lawn. There is nothing about this proposal that would change or prohibit or limit the time of day or night in which individuals can exercise their First Amendment rights. So yes, Mayor Pro Tem, this proposal, and we're talking specifically about the camping provision,
Right.
while it would prohibit camping, sleeping, activities consistent with that, it does not regulate or limit expressive activity.
Okay. Based upon what I just heard a moment ago, I wanted to make sure that we were clear about that, just so it's well understood that with Dr. King, of course, being about nonviolence, being about peaceful demonstrations, and being supportive of political protest, that we in no way are finding ourselves to be in a position to be doing something contrary to it. And I will simply say that it's my hope that we will move this forward, but at the same time that CRC, our Community Relations Department, they have been very much engaged in this process for a very long time.
I'm sorry, we're going to have to insist on order in the audience, please.
And I want to thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I want to take a moment just to thank them. And I would hope, Mr. Manager, that they will stay engaged in the process with those persons that have been more than willing to work with them that have been on the old City Hall lawn toward moving forward toward a date that they feel that they want to go ahead and leave by, which, by the way, I might add, there was some talk even prior to this of some members of the movement who had suggested that they were going to be looking to leave earlier rather than where we are today in talking about even designating the 30th for a date. I say that to say this. It was said earlier that there are some people that have been working really, really well with City Hall, with police, and I just want to commend you for doing that because, one, you didn't have to do it. Two, we appreciate you being here and sharing your voices with us. So, Mr. Mayor, I know we haven't really finished the point on whether or not we're going to have the manager or the council to be engaged in some of the discussion about extraordinary events. It's my thought that with this being a council manager form of government, in as much as I, too, have all the confidence in Manager Walton, I certainly want to make sure that in the future, whether it's for Mr. Walton as manager or you as mayor or someone else, that the council is still engaged in that. And there could be some level of a discrepancy about who interprets what to be extraordinary or not. And if that's the case, I would suggest, Mr. Barnes, asking you to amend your motion to allow that the council be a part of that, or at least that the manager be able to come with a recommendation to the City Council, as his office does right now, on suggesting what might be an extraordinary event and wanting to move forward to declare it as such.
Ms. Kinsey, I'm coming back to you, Ms. Kinsey.
Well, I think this goes back to what I said originally. I don't think we're going to have that many extraordinary events, and I think the manager will keep us posted. But remember, the council will be replaced probably before the manager will be. So we're not going to, all of us will not be sitting around this dais in a few years. So I still think that it should be the manager's responsibility.
That's the point of my suggestion.
And just, well, if you're saying just bring it to us, just to inform us, I think that's fine. I just don't think we need to, be in on the decision.
And I know this manager well enough to know he will do that. I mean, that's his practice. Mr. Archer.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mayor. I would like to hear a little more detail about the lottery process. There's been a lot of confusion, I think, about what that means, and does that mean that some people will not have the opportunity to use the facility that's going to be set up for this speaking activity. Could we have some clarification on that, please?
Mr. Autry, what we contemplate is something similar that has been done in previous convention cities. For both parades and time behind a microphone provided by the city in what I'm taking to calling a speaker's platform, we have to come up with some method of allocating that time that is fair, because it is quite possible, if not likely, that more groups and individuals want to access those resources than we can accommodate during the course of the DNC. So what we contemplate doing is setting a standing application deadline for any group that wants to parade during the DNC and for any individual that wants to access the speaker's platform and the microphone. We will publicize that well in advance, as well as we can, receive applications, and then do a lottery process which ensures that the decision-making is not based on attempting to favorite any particular individual or point of view to assign those times and locations. Now, in fact, somebody yelled out from the audience that sometimes this speaker's area is referred to as a free speech zone. The implication or suggestion, which is false, is that it is the only place where you can exercise your First Amendment rights within the city. As I indicated previously, currently all the sidewalks and city-controlled properties, park-like properties throughout the city, are available today, will be available tomorrow, will be available the day after this ordinance passes if the council approves it, and will be available during the DNC without the need to get prior approval or permission from the government. Accessing the speaker's platform is the choice of those individuals who wish to access that, subject to being selected through the lottery.
Thank you. Mr. Howard.
Mr. Mayor, I was wondering if we could now get the city attorney to respond to the questions you had earlier.
Yeah. And we do have a grace period that's under consideration based on Mr. Barnes's motion. What, if any, impact to a 7-day grace period?
And my answer is framed in consultation with the city manager and the police chief. I don't think anybody on staff would have an objection to delaying the effective date until January 30th.
Okay. There's been additional conversation about a sunset on this ordinance, and there hasn't been a motion made to that effect. Don't know if there will be, but what, if any, impact to perhaps a year effective date of this ordinance with some review built into it by the Public Safety Committee in advance of the sunset date? Is that?
No objections, Mayor, if that's the council's preference. A year would do it. I think we need to at least get through the full federal election cycle through inauguration. So at least a year.
Okay. There's been a lot of conversation there. In fact, there were speakers who came and talked about the impact of this ordinance on the homeless population. And I think our Deputy Police Chief Medlock has some insight into that. So I'd like to invite you to. I haven't heard the insight, but I'm.
It's very insightful.
Okay.
Thank you, Mayor. The ordinances really have no effect on our homeless population. Anyone who has spent time in Charlotte and seen the work that CMPD does with our homeless population knows that in most cases, in virtually all cases, that we're dispatched or we encounter a homeless individual sleeping on public property, our first goal is to get that person to a shelter. Very seldom when an officer offers a ride or referral to a shelter, and more often it's a ride to a shelter, police are hardly ever turned down. But we try to never leave anyone on the street. And there have been instances where we have found makeshift shelters for folks to get them through a very difficult night. There are occasions where we've encountered homeless people who perhaps have an arrest warrant out for them, and of course we have to take that action. But more often than not, we give that homeless person a ride or we try to find them a suitable shelter. And in some cases, the individual just wants to walk off, and certainly we'll let them do that. There's very, very little issue really in Charlotte with people sleeping on public property. Most of the issue is private property, and we only take enforcement action on private property when we're contacted by the property owner, a manager, or someone who has authority to act on that property. And again, we use the same methods in trying to find that individual a place to stay for the night, or we offer just to let them leave, providing there's no other criminal activity involved.
On the, there's been discussion of sunset, no motion on it, but I think at a minimum it'd be good to have a review of this ordinance, probably maybe sometime in the fall, late fall.
1 year.
At the 1 year
Yeah,
point?
I think so.
Okay. Maybe at the 1 year point. Can we have maybe a friendly amendment on that?
Mr. Mayor, with the advice that the manager gave, I would suggest that it be as soon as possible after the next presidential inauguration.
About a year.
So, in other words, that would be the 20th of January 2013. So certainly within a year, but yeah, as soon as practical after that.
I'll make that as a friendly amendment.
But I will accept that. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. We've got Mr. Archery and then Ms. Mayfield.
You took care of that. I wanted to make that amendment. That are we talking a review, or are we talking a sunset clause?
Review by the Public Safety Committee.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Mayor, thank you. I would put forth then that we entertain a friendly amendment to have a sunset of these ordinance on January 20th, 2013.
Mr. Barnes?
Mr. Autry, I thought about that, and after we adjusted the ordinances from the proposal we saw on January 20th, I feel comfortable that what we may pass tonight won't necessarily need to be sunset, because as Charlotte continues to grow, we may in fact need these ordinance changes on the books anyway. There's talk about World Cup activity. There's talk about a lot of large-scale events that may be coming to the city. Some folks have talked about the Olympics. With that in mind, I think it would be a good idea to actually keep these ordinances in place with that review a year from now. And also keep in mind that any future council could tweak them, amend them, repeal them anyway.
Thank you. Okay. We've had a good, robust discussion of this. I'll just say a couple of things in closing. That a lot of times people come down and speak to us and interface with us and walk away without the view that they had an impact, but I can point to several items that are contained in the package we have in front of us tonight that have been impacted by the results of the public hearing. And I'll tell you about another one we haven't discussed. A couple of weeks ago, some citizens had some concerns about the way the 3-minute rule was depicted on the city website. And since that meeting, I've gone to the city attorney. I've asked him to take a look at it and to see if we can clean that language up so that it's very clear how the 3-minute rule works for citizens in the future. And while that is not in front of us tonight, I expect that it will be in front of us at some point, subject to the 4-hour rule, obviously, that we observe as council. But I say that to say that I have a deep and abiding respect for the citizens' right to come speak to their government. And that's exactly what many of you have done. And while there may be some who think that I have content disagreements with you, or that the council has content disagreements with you, I would caution you to think that on this end of the dais, we have to think about what if someone came in front of us that had views that we absolutely disagreed with. We still have to protect their right to speak. But we also have to protect the right of the public to expect public safety and order. in our community. And that balance is very difficult to strike. And we're trying to do the best we can. But what I want to express to you is that you shouldn't read into any of what we're doing as a content concern, because it's not. From my opinion, it's really based in trying to be fair, not only to people with whom I agree, but people with whom I disagree. And that's what our First Amendment is really all about. So with that, we've got a motion, several friendly amendments. All in favor, please raise your hand. Opposed? Thank you very much.
Shame on you.
That's what you're supporting. That's what you just supported.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to have a 5-minute recess. Thank you.
Ready, set, go.
Well, that makes me feel a little.
Yeah, I am. So we're going to try to come back.
All right.
Cooks.
We're back in session. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. And we begin with item 8, multifamily solid waste collection service options.
Motion to approve.
There's a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, we got a quorum.
Let's speak to it.
Any
real
further
quick.
discussion? Yes, sir, Mr. Howard.
I was wondering, Mr. Manager, I'm still concerned about the open-endedness about this and how we deal with added expense that could happen. Could you share kind of what your thoughts are on at least the effects on this budget year and what your thoughts are on if you're going as far as to think about next budget year?
I'll answer Mr. Howard and defer to the attorney to see if I get it right. I think in this next period, while the appeal is being contemplated, we don't have an option. And so we're going to have to go forward and prepare as if we were going to provide this as the judge ordered. If the appeal is heard and our appeal is upheld, or if we win the appeal, then the impact is no different than on the budget right now. But what the impact long term could be, we won't know if we lose our appeal until the number of complexes that would choose the second pickup would be identified, and we would know the landfill cost. So we know the fixed cost is $80,000, but the additional landfill cost will be six figures. We're not sure how high, but we should know within 30 days or so which avenue we're taking.
All right.
Mayor.
Mr. Barnes and then Mr. Kennedy.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mayor. I wanted to ask the attorney for clarification. Mr. Howard, your question may have been wrapped into what I'm going to ask, but I recall that when we first heard the presentation, I asked whether we could essentially stop providing the supplemental pickup because it struck me that the judge's order essentially required us to do something that we don't have to do. So my question to the attorney at that time was whether we could simply not provide the supplemental service. Were you answering that question just then, or is that another question? If it wasn't, please answer my question.
Mr. Barnes, let me answer it anyway. You put your finger on the problem with the order as we read it. It affirmatively directs the city to begin by February 2nd to offer supplemental to other contractors. Our concern with the wording of the order, there's some legal aspects of it, but the practical, which is also legal, is that it is unclear whether the intent of the order sets an outer date. In other words, we have to begin by February 2nd. It doesn't say anything, and it's unclear as to whether there's an expectation from the court that we will continue it, and if so, for what period of time. And our concern is if we discontinue in the face of this order, would we be called back before the judge on a possible contempt motion? That's one concern with the wording of the order. The other concern is, having found discrimination, and we're going to challenge the finding on appeal as well, but having found discrimination, in our view, we think that the City Council should have the right to choose which policy they then pursue, you pursue, that is non-discriminatory. The order directs that you provide offer supplemental to all haulers. It strikes us that a logical and obvious alternative that would also be non-discriminatory is to offer it to none. That's the policy choice that we believe has been taken away from this council. If we are successful in getting a stay by February 2nd, that means we can continue under the current program. And through your normal budget process and policy review, you can look at your options. If we're unsuccessful getting a stay from the Court of Appeals, we have no choice for risk of contempt, but to follow what the judge ordered us to do. And this action would give the manager the authority to do that.
Okay, so other than approving the action as written in item 8, we have no other options?
I can't think of any good options.
Okay, and you say we have sought a stay and we have appealed?
We went back before the trial judge and asked for a stay. As you know, that's a prerequisite to seeking what's called a writ of supersedious, the equivalent of a stay from the Court of Appeals. We did that last week, and not surprisingly, the judge denied that. will be filing within the next 2 days papers in Raleigh with the Court of Appeals asking for them to enter a stay, hopefully before February the 2nd.
Okay, thank you, sir.
All right. Any more questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
That carries. Number 9. I'm sorry, Ms. Mayfield.
I was opposed.
Oh, no. Okay, I'm sorry. That's noted. Item 9, Briar Creek Relief Sewer Phase 2 construction. Is there a motion on
So
this?
moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded, Mr. Mitchell and Mr. Barnes.
Mayor and Council, first of all, let me thank you for allowing us on January 9th to revisit this item, just try to reach a SBA goal of 4%. And to the viewers out there, this was a $17 million project. 4% constitutes about $705,000 to spend with the SBE. The current awardee has agreed on to spend 2.8, and I have to thank Bob Hageman, Barry Sheraton, and Nancy Rosario for reaching out to Oscar Renti about trying to increase his participation of 4%. We met with several SBEs who bidded on the project just to try to get to the goal, and we were not successful. I think our vote tonight is really a proven bad behavior among a general contractor, but unfortunately for us, he met the good faith effort points, so legally we do not have a foot to stand on. I think we should move in a pace as we can to revisit the good faith effort and to make sure that we can raise that bar high enough that people really would try to meet the SBE goal. I think it's a sad day for our SBEs when they're struggling to try to find opportunities. And we have a $17 million project that one of our lowest bidder, lowest responsible bidder, doesn't even want to comply. He has a history. This is not his first time of not meeting our goals. We just finished the McAlpine project. The goal then was 1.8%, and he only reached like 1.08. Somehow policymakers, we have to put in place not to allow these situations to occur that's having a negative impact to our SBE firms. Thank you, staff. Thank you, Bob Hageman. We looked at every possible way we could hope to get SBE participation as well as keeping it low. I think he's playing a business game with us because if we rebid this project, the next lower bidder came in at $21 million. None of us want to use taxpayer dollars to spend an additional $3.9 million. So this is a tough one for me, but I know I'm a vote. But I think more importantly, Council, we need to move fast on the good faith effort. Thank you, Mayor and Council.
Okay.
Question.
Mr. Barnes and then Mr. Cannon.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I echo many of Councilmember Mitchell's concerns. The reason I'm going to vote against it is because the next lowest bidder is almost $4 million higher than this one. And I recognize that it seems somewhat counterintuitive to do so, but I'm going to see several change orders coming, and they're going to eventually get to the 22 million. Further, my fear, as was the case with another one of these contracts that we turned down last year, if we reject the bid, they're going to rebid and make their bid about $3 or $4 million higher.
Exactly.
But because I try to do what I believe is right, despite that risk, I'm going to vote against the action.
Okay, Mr. Cannon.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I had gotten ahead of myself. I was one of those, along with Councilman Mitchell, that had pulled this and spoke to it when it came up a week or so ago. And I had made the motion on this to move approval. I am withdrawing my motion, and we'll leave that up to someone else, as I'll be voting nay against this.
Okay, Mr. Cooksey.
All right, then I'll move approval.
Second.
Moved and seconded.
And I'll specifically state that I'll move approval. I think it's not good business practice to chastise a firm for following our procedure. And that's what this company did. We can have our differences about the procedure. We can look into it. But they did what we have asked and should not be criticized for it. Thank you.
Okay. Yes, sir. Mr. Mitchell.
Just to come back to Mr. Councilman Cooksey, are you saying they followed a procedure on reaching the SBE goal, or they followed a procedure on a good faith effort?
On working within the program, which has both a goal component and a good faith effort component, both of which have been approved by, granted, a previous council, because we're, 2 months old, but both approved by council. And they did what council expected them to do, which was either meet the SBE goal or hit the right point target on good faith effort. That's what they did.
Thanks for the clarification.
Yeah. Question.
Mr. King.
Who established the goal of 4%?
Barry Sheeran, Chief Engineer for Utilities Engineering.
Right.
Really is in conjunction with our department, the utilities, and with the Small Business Office. We go through and do an estimate of the entire project, and then we pull out those items that are believed to be subcontract opportunities, and then they're looked at by a group of staff that work on SBE to determine how much is an opportunity for the available SBEs, and that's how that number is calculated.
Okay, so a goal was established of 4%. That's what we asked for, right? So it sounds to me, Mr. Cooksey, like they didn't meet it. So not with 2.59.
Okay. Mr. Cook, I'm sorry, Ms. Kinsey, then Mr. Cook.
Okay. I plan to support this, but I think we need to know that if it fails, where do we go next? And what has to happen, and how much more is that going to cost us in time and money? And I think I know part of the answer, but Mr. Sharon would be better at answering that. If this fails, Mr. Sharon, what happens next?
At that point, presuming that the motion is to reject all of the bids and rebid the project, then we would go forward, putting the project back on the street for re-advertisement for a 30 to 45-day window, at which all of the bidders or additional bidders are open to rebidding the project. I think, as you said, then the only caveat is now the prices have all been exposed of all the bidders, so it's hard to say exactly how the bids will come in the second time.
They go up.
That is one of the actions that could happen with that much difference between first and second low.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
Mr. Cooksey, and then let's go ahead and have a vote.
Indeed. Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate the reminder that I need to speak very clearly when I explain the position. We have two components to this program, an SBE target goal and a good faith effort component, and the requirement of a bidding company is to meet either one or the other. Yes, this company did not meet the SBE goal, as the Mayor Pro Tem noted, but they did meet the council-required good faith efforts to show they had tried to meet it. That's what we expect of them, either meet the goal or the good faith efforts. They've done one of those. We should allow it.
Okay, you want?
I just want to make one point. You know, we addressed this way back in the day because, see, good faith at one point simply meant or could mean that I could literally call you. I could, pick the phone up and dial your number. And if you didn't answer, I put forth a good faith effort. You could have been at lunch. You could have been anywhere. But the effort was set forth. Now, it's incumbent upon me to really go beyond the expectation if I'm going to really be about the good faith effort. If I think that you may have been out of the office at that particular time, then why wouldn't I just call back maybe later that day or a couple of days to follow or any days thereafter? I wouldn't make that call largely in part because if I'm just looking to merely say that I'm trying to meet the good faith effort, but I'm really not trying to meet the good faith effort, then I don't make that call back to you. I go with my one attempt and I leave it at that. We're trying to get beyond that, and I think that's kind of the issue that Councilmember Mitchell was pointing at. Not so much that, but with what's out there now, we want to continue to encourage this good faith effort as best we can. And I think staff has been doing that along the way. I applaud them for that. But I have to tell you, we have some people who just today, they're not trying to allow people to be a part of opportunity. And we have to be doing all of which we can to make sure they understand that we want them to be about that opportunity, even if they don't want to try to go that route. So we can vote.
There's a motion to approve and lots of conversation around the dice. Let's see what it yields. All in favor of the motion to approve, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
No. All right, let's have hands on that. In favor? Okay, that's 6. Opposed? 2, 3. Okay. Item 10, purchase agreement amendment with Carolina Water Service, Bradfield
To approve
Farms
A and B.
Water.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That carries unanimously. Item 11, incentive grants for Marbach America Incorporated.
A,
Move
B,
to
and
approve A,
C.
B, and C.
Moved and seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That carries unanimously. We move to appointments to boards and commissions.
Consent items.
Oh, I'm sorry, consent items. I apologize. Item 18, who pulled that? Okay, Ms. Fallon?
Yeah, I have a question about that. Somebody can answer it to me. Are they responsible for pulling up signs that are illegally there?
No, ma'am.
They're not?
No, ma'am.
All right. And how often do they police the area?
They're on various schedules over the growing season.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. I'm John Loyko with Engineering and Property Management. Depending on the contract itself, it could be once a week, or every 2 weeks.
Thank you.
Okay. Is there a motion on that one?
Move
to approve.
Moved and seconded.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, item 21, who pulled that?
I did, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, sir.
This is another use of city money to retrofit a dam and a privately owned pond, and I'm opposed to without any skin in the game from the pond owner, and I'm opposed to that. So I'll be voting no. I'll let someone else make the motion.
Motion to approve A, B, C, and D.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, noted. Item 22, Mr. Dooley.
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. This is the airport parking equipment. Anybody that's been to the airport knows that it needs to be upgraded, and we are indeed upgrading it. Mr. Orr, I do want to make sure, though, does the upgrade of this equipment, I couldn't find it in the reading, include new cashier huts? Because those things are so old, the windows are cloudy.
Yes, sir, we're installing those now, but that's not under this contract. This is just a staffing contract.
Okay. Well, wait a minute. Let me go back to it real quick then, Council.
Page 23.
Yeah, thank you.
While you're doing that, Mr. Dooley, we got to...
Excuse me, sir, I got it. Thank you. I'm sorry. This says installation of
Andy,
new...
we got a recusal issue. Hang on one second.
Yeah, sorry.
Ms. Pickering. you got it.
Mr. Mayor, I move that Mayor Pro Tem Cannon be recused from this vote.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Mr. Dooley.
This does say in our write-up, installation of new parking revenue control system is currently underway and will be completed by June. The new system will substantially reduce the need for temporary personnel. Okay, I circled that this weekend and clearly didn't read it very well, but
It's hard to read on the weekend.
yeah, I might have been at a kids basketball game. When will the new parking revenue control systems be in place? I haven't been out there in more than a month.
In June.
And how that's including the new huts, the new pay.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you very much, Mayor. I move to approve 22.
Second.
Thank you, Mr.
All
Orr.
right, all in...
Second.
Ms. Fallon.
No.
Oh, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, that carries. That concludes the consent items. Item 13, appointments to boards and commissions, privatization and competition advisory committee. Madam Clerk, what do we have?
Emma Allen has been appointed.
All right.
There is a need for a runoff for the remainder of the positions, which is 2 positions. There are 5 candidates. Robert Diamond received 4. Catherine Perley received 3. Owen Setkowski received 3. Bridget Taylor received 4. And Alexander Vuknik received 3.
All right, let's have a vote.
We could vote twice, is that
You can
correct?
vote twice. Everyone can vote twice.
Okay.
All right? Vote 3 times, there's a penalty associated with that. Okay, Robert Diamond, all in favor, please raise your hand. 1, 2. Okay. Catherine Perley, please raise your hand. 1, 2, 3. Y'all are being stingy with your votes. Owen Setkowski, please raise your hand. 1, 2.
We get 6.
Bridget Taylor, please raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, she be appointed.
I know you did Randall. One more right there.
Randall Miller?
Yeah, I didn't hear you say that one.
Is it Randall Miller or Robert?
It was Robert Diamond.
He's not up.
Robert Diamond.
Randall Miller resigned.
Resigned.
He did not get his votes.
Amy got it. She's already up.
Alexander
Do we say Robert
Bucknich,
Do we say Robert Diamond?
please raise your hand. Yeah, I did.
Okay, I missed that.
We'll come back around if we, looks like we're going. 1, 2, 3. Okay, I'm going to start over. Robert Diamond, please raise your hand. 1, 2, 3. Catherine, this you can only vote once this time, y'all. Catherine Perry.
Oh, once?
This time around, yes. This time around. I'm going back through. 1, 2, 3, 4 for Catherine Perry. Owen Sitkowski. 1, 2, 3. And Alexander Bucknich. Bucknich. Nothing. Okay. So we're going to go back to Mr. Who got the most votes that round? Diamond?
Catherine
Catherine
Perley.
Perley received 4 during that round.
And Zukowski got 3.
Catherine Perry.
So we're down to Perley, Sitkowski, and Diamond.
Yes.
Okay. Yes, sir.
Since we're on round 3, I'll do a little talk, if I may. Just to clarify, I'm supporting Robert Diamond because, to my knowledge, he hasn't had an opportunity to serve on the Citizens Committee before. Ms. Paoli serves on the Citizens Transit Advisory Group, and Mr. Sitkowski has served on this committee in the past. So that's the reason I keep voting for Robert Diamond, is to give him an opportunity to serve on this. Thank you.
Yes, Ms. McKenzie.
May I also speak?
Please.
And the reason I'm supporting Catherine Perley is because we do not have, well, we just elected the first female, and we need another female. And I would ask you to support us.
Okay. All right, let's go
So we're
back.
down to 3. Can you tell me 3 ahead of time?
Diamond, Perley, Sitkowski.
Okay.
Those are the 3. All right.
We need another one.
Vote for one.
All right, here we go. Vote for 1.
Okay.
We're using Charlotte politics, not Chicago.
I resign.
I'm just kidding. It's just a joke. It's a joke. It's a joke.
Can I get you to talk just a little bit? Because I think I'm missing something. It must be this ear.
Okay.
Because I missed Taylor when that vote went around.
You missed it. You wanted to vote for her?
Yeah.
She's already on.
She's already
Okay,
on.
good. That's all. I
Okay.
think I just missed something.
I think you voted for her.
Voted for it.
I know, but we going quick.
Okay.
Here we are. Here we are.
All right.
I'm with you now.
1 vote.
What time?
Robert Diamond. 3.
That's good.
Catherine Perley. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. She is on. Okay.
3-woman night.
Keep trying.
All right. Thank you.
Good shot, Patsy.
Now, Zoning Board of Adjustment, we have, looks like, 3 appointments.
1 appointment for a regular member, Jennifer Coble, has been appointed.
Yes.
Very good.
Good
Right?
shot.
For the
Congratulations,
remaining 2
Jennifer.
appointments for alternate members, Paul Arena and Mark Laughlin have been appointed to those.
Very good.
All right, great.
Fantastic. Mayor and council topics. Thank you, Madam Clerk. Mr. Mitchell.
Mayor and Council, thank you. The first one is the Men Who Care Globally are having a appreciation breakfast this Saturday at Johnson C. Smith University, Saturday, January 28th at 8:30 at Johnson C. Smith University. Please come out as a way of showing our appreciation for all the great work you've done in our community. That's Men Who Care Globally. It is free on the campus of Johnson C. Smith. Breakfast starts at 8:30. Secondly, Mayor and Council, this is the Citizens in District 2. My annual Intelligent Leadership Conference will be scheduled Saturday, February 18th from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. Please call 704-336-4947, 704-336-4947 to attend the 10th Annual Intelligent Leadership Conference for District 2 citizens. Thank you. That's Saturday, February the 18th.
All right. Any more? Let me just thank the staff for a lot of hard work on these ordinances that we've been through. Kurt, you and your team, and Bob Hageman and yours. I know it's taken a lot of time, a lot of energy, and a lot of working with folks in the community. And while everyone doesn't always appreciate the work you do, I think it's occasionally helpful for us to recognize that. Thank you. Thanks, Ken.
Mr.
All
Mayor,
right. Good
Mr.
evening.
Mayor.
Yes, ma'am. Sorry.
One more thing. I very much appreciate our police department being with us tonight. I really do appreciate it.
Thank you, officers. And And
With that,
they do
we'll
a stellar
stand.
job every day and every night, every day of the year, and we certainly appreciate the work you do.
All right. Good evening, everybody. Meeting's adjourned.